Did either of you watch or hear about the Canadian election interference thing with Trudeau this week?
No.
Okay, Mark? It was
Possibly.
it was all over the news. Biggest story in the country.
I was kind of out of commission this week. Not that I listen to a lot of political
Okay, so again,
podcasts or
I'll,
shows, but
well,
catch this up.
this sort of goes to a couple of things, which I'll just really quickly touch on first. So the high level thing is there's been a commission going on in Ottawa about the election interference and about sort of what the Prime Minister knew, what CSIS knew, what the what the RCMP knew, and all that sort of stuff. So Trudeau goes on and he says, we have complicated intelligence about this, and there are sitting members of Parliament and if sitting and former members of the Conservative Party that are implicated in this report. Now, whether it's they were they knew about they were actively involved in interference, or it was done against them without them knowing. And it wasn't really said, and I didn't take it as any way as to saying like they're the only party. But the reason he brought it up was Poilievre, who might very well be our next prime minister, has never gone for a security clearance in government. Now, I know people who are 21 years old working in government who have the same security clearance that he needs because they work with Shared Services Canada. So this guy who's leading the official opposition of the country does not have security clearance.
That's interesting.
How is that allowed? How is that? I don't. He's, of course, it's sort of like the Trump world of like the whole release your tax returns things. Like, why haven't you gone for security clearance? And Poilievre's been in government for like almost 20 years, and he doesn't have security clearance.
That seems like a major oversight.
Isn't that odd?
It would kind of make you wonder why, but
when you get, some people are saying that the reason he doesn't have it is plausible deniability, because then he can say, oh, I've never, because he was in government when Harper was in government, right? So he was the minister of, he's the guy who came up with the bill to try and make it harder for people to vote. But that means that all this time, even when he was in active government on the side of like the ruling party, he did not have a security clearance to view intelligence.
That's crazy.
Isn't that crazy? So anyway, so it sets off, Trudeau's comment set off this firestorm of, if you have the names, release the names, right? So there must be a lot of people in government who, even if they didn't actively try and cause election interference, like let's say they were approached by a Chinese national who said, we'd like to help you get elected, like technically that's interference. And if they accepted the help even slightly, like by saying, oh, sure, yeah, if you want to run some ads, great, that's illegal. And I'm sure there's a lot of people in government who are terrified of this report getting out. But Poilievre, he can't say yes or no, my people are involved, because he can't even look at the report, which is bananas. But anyway, that was the big story. So do you think that a prime minister should have to have security clearance before they're elected, or should they have to get it afterwards?
Oh, you would think it would be before they're elected.
Yes. Because otherwise, but again, it's like Trump. Had his tax returns come out before when he was elected the first time, people probably would not have voted for him because it showed just how much fraud he was involved with. Right? And so
we'd probably be in a better spot now.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is the second last person who ran against Trudeau was Andrew Scheer. And Andrew Scheer, he kept it really quiet, but everyone in the Conservative Party knew about it. And then about a month before the election, it comes out publicly that he's not really a Canadian citizen. He's a dual American-Canadian citizen. And that ended up costing him a lot of votes. But they were going to keep that completely quiet. Like as if Canadians don't deserve to know that the person they're electing for prime minister also pays taxes in the United States. Very strange.
Very, yes.
But like some people say Canadian politics is boring. Like sometimes shit like this happens, which is beyond baffling. But anyway, that was the lot. That's the overview, and whether it's going to affect the poll numbers, I don't know. But I think that if you're a diehard, like, one of those fuck Trudeau guys, you really should be looking at yourself in the mirror right now, wondering why you're voting for a guy who will not even submit to a basic security clearance that, like, entry level government employees have to get.
Well, that's the interesting thing, right? Like, you can't walk in anywhere without clearance. So how does this happen?
Yeah, and again, you're totally right. How has he gone this far? And, like, when he was running for leader of the Conservative Party, how could you nominate someone who doesn't even have security clearance? I mean, it's it'd be like not checking up on the diploma of a person you're hiring to be, like, a scientist, or not checking up on your certificate to be a truck mechanic. Very odd.
Well,
But anyway,
there was a story, not politically, but of a nurse that was going from province to province, pretending she was a nurse, and she wasn't a nurse. She had I don't know
yeah.
if you heard about that. She had
I did, yeah.
these certificate number, but nobody bothered to check the background on it. They just put it in the box and let it go. Like, holy!
That is so bananas.
This is yeah, and
Yeah.
and again, it wasn't once or twice. This has been like decades. She's been doing this.
And I imagine there's the term grandfathered in, right? And I imagine a lot of these people who have just been in a job for a long time, everybody just assumes that you're qualified for it. Like, I would wager that in some company, probably not in North America or Europe, but in some other part of the world, there's a pilot right now who is just a really damn good pilot.
Oh,
But
probably.
does not have the necessary paperwork.
But I mean, with the government paperwork, there are specific places where you have to put specific codes. And you would
Yeah.
think filling out paperwork somewhere along the line, somebody would have went, okay, we need this. We don't have this.
Well, it's been, like, I've known about Poilievre's security clearance problems for a long time because, of course, I pay attention to this shit. But a lot of it's never really come up until now, right? I mean, yes, you should have it. Why aren't you doing it? But then all of a sudden, it's and then everyone's jumping on Trudeau saying that he's corrupt because he won't release the names. Well, he can't show you the names because you don't have security clearance. But anyway, that's my political rant for the search trackers.
It's messy, is what it is. And it doesn't seem to matter which side of the border you're looking at. It's whether it's south or up here where we are. It's just there's never ending supply of things to make you shake your head.
Well, what's crazy right now in the States is, I mean, I'm sure neither of you will be watching the election on November 5th, but I will because I'm addicted to this stuff. It is so close in the United States right now, and we mentioned this on previous ones, but I'll say it again. It's so, because I thought it might change. It's so close. Like, the New York Times has Harris at 49% and Trump at 47%. That's within the margin of error. So it could be it could be the opposite. But what's going to happen, and I think I already described it, I'm going to do it again, mark my words, in this, because in Georgia this was just overturned, where they had to hand count every ballot, but the rural areas, like the country areas of all the country bumpkins who vote Trump, those are the first polls that'll close, and those are the first ones that'll be counted, and all those the results will be in. So just like what happened with last time, where Trump basically declared victory before half the polls were counted last time, he's going to do the same thing again, because it's going to be up, and he's going to make the statement of, oh, it's all fixed, it's a scam. Here we are, we're so far ahead, there's no way we can be beaten.
You mean the same old rhetoric that he always seems to revert to? Because that's his thing.
Oh yeah, but his supporters are smart politically, because they know that as soon as the cities start counting ballots, the cities will all go for Harris. But if they can get it in the mind of the public that it's a scam before that happens, that's why so many people last time thought it was all all rigged.
You know,
But
talk about election, um, manipulation or interference. That's exactly what that is,
yes,
but
and
it's psychological.
oh, totally. And like for example, in here in Canada, it used to be okay for because between the Atlantic provinces and BC, there's like a 5 hour time difference, right? So by when the Atlantic people were voting and the polls closed there and the results started coming in, there was still 3 hours left for the BC people to vote. And it used to be okay for them to release the numbers of the Atlantic stuff early. And so, if when they did that, the BC people and the Alberta people would say, "Oh shit, my party's losing. There's no point in voting." But in reality, I mean, it's night and day stuff. But anyway, but with the United States, like all the important states like Pennsylvania, it's 49 Harris, 48 Trump. In Georgia, 49 Trump, 47 Harris. Nevada, 48 Harris, 47 Trump. Like it's so fucking close. It's ridiculous. Like a lot of the pundits that I watch and pay attention to, we've never seen this in our lifetime. So it's going to be a very, very, very messy election.
Yeah, I don't know. I have my doubts that you can even trust those numbers.
The numbers basically like for some of these things, like they'll do 60 different polls and then they find the average between them all, right?
Right.
So
and like any survey, right? Because essentially that's what it is. Where you survey 100 people and then extend that result across the entire population, it's ineffective. It doesn't mean anything. It just means that that's the results for that 100 people. You could have polled 200 people and got an opposite result because of just those people that had a different opinion. I don't know. It's just so stupid. All those results mean very, very little, in my opinion.
It can go both ways, right? Because sometimes the polls are spot on. Like in some states and provinces, sometimes they're really good. Other times they're way off. Like right now, the all indications show that Harris should win. I still don't see it happening.
Well, whether she does or not, you can guarantee it's going to be messy.
Oh yeah, Trump either has to lose by enough to make it not matter what he says. Like last time, Biden beat him by millions of votes, but because he's so distrusting, he was able to kind of flip that. But like right now, like in the United States for electoral college, you need 270 electoral college votes. Right now, Harris is at 226, Trump's at 219. That's really fucking close. So someone's got to lose. But anyway, I won't bore you more with this stuff. I still say Trump's going to win. I don't want Trump to win, but I still think he's going to win. But anyway, so that's all I got for tonight.
That's the problem. It's just a huge joke. Look at Trump. How much shit is he involved with? I know all the other ones are too, but they're a little more discreet. And it just makes the whole thing a mockery, a joke.
That's my thought exactly. It is
no different up here. Look at all the shit that they're all involved in, and these are the people that are running things.
In the States right now, it comes down to social politics and culture wars, right? Where you have a lot of people who, at least the people I've seen polled and interviewed, who don't like Trump. They think he's scum, but they look at Harris and they look at Democrat stuff like transgender issues, immigration issues, all this kind of stuff, and they just can't vote for that. So they have to vote for Trump because he's the only alternative. And again, I would imagine that there are some Republicans who just can't vote for Trump, so they have to vote for Harris. Because like if you're an evangelical person and you look at Trump and say, he's committed all these crimes, he's committed adultery, he's a convicted felon, I can't vote for that even though I'm a Republican, so I'm going to vote for Harris because she's the lesser of two evils. Like, when it gets down to you're voting for the lesser of two evils, that sucks. That really sucks.
Well, I hate to say it, but I almost think that that's exactly what it's going to come down to for a lot of people.
Oh yeah, for sure. And
It isn't. It isn't. It's less to do with what that individual is going to be able to do for me, for example, if I'm a voter, which in this case none of us are voters for the U.S. election, um, because in the grand scheme of things, odds are really low that either one of them is going to make any major changes that are going to directly and long term affect the lives of the average individual.
I would say that would be right in most elections. I do think in this election there's one huge thing that either one of them is going to have to move on immediately, otherwise the country's going to fucking flip, and that's immigration. Either one of them is going to have to do some major immigration changes, otherwise there's going to be a lot of problems in the United States. And I think Canada is we're going to be in the same boat
Yeah,
probably next year
Canada's-
as well.
Sure, we are.
It's the same.
And I think if Trump gets in, and even if like he's talking about deporting all these people, and I don't think that's going to happen, but I do think that he's going to bring in incredibly strict immigration reform, which I support. I don't think there should be free immigration, but I think that Canada's going to have to match suit just because of the changes whoever makes, because we're their biggest border. So whatever they do for immigration, we have to do that. We have to follow, and that's the only issue. And I guess maybe abortion too, but that doesn't affect everybody. That affects half the population, right? But immigration affects everybody at this moment. So that's the only thing I would say that they're going to have to fix. But anyway,
Well, but then again, that's a touchy subject, and
oh yeah,
it's going to have bigger impacts on certain members of the population than others. But anyway, I'll keep my opinions to that matter to myself for now.
best. Give me two of your favorite. And this is very sci-fi specific. Your two favorite spacecraft from movies.
My two
Oh,
favorite spacecraft.
Yeah, like X-wing, the ship from is it Guyver, that kind of stuff.
Honestly, it's going to sound really out there, but the ship from the show Lex, I thought was probably the most original that I've ever seen. The movie and the show itself was just weird, but
Yeah, I'd say.
but the fact that the whole ship looked basically like a giant dragonfly, I thought was cool. It's different.
I forgot all about that show.
Definitely bizarre.
Okay, there's one.
Well, you can't not mention the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah.
But
there's
I don't
a
know,
lot though.
Yeah, I don't.
I couldn't
have a
limit
favorite
to two.
ship.
Okay, how about 5?
Because I'm going to have to throw any of the renditions of the USS Enterprise.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
got it's going to have to be on that list.
Okay, all right. Which one is the best?
Oh,
And I have a follow-up question for you.
Oh, good.
I don't know. I wouldn't be able to pick one. There's been enough renditions that I would actually be very hesitant to pick one because I could easily get them wrong.
Okay, how about this?
I prefer the more modern ones, I guess you could say.
Okay, so
Because
like from Nemesis, or
yeah, well, because they look a little bit more sleek than the originals, of course, because the originals were limited by their, special effects ability at the time.
so I have models of several of the Enterprise here on my desk that just happen to be, and this is what facilitated my question on Friday to people at work. So you're referring to the Enterprise E, which is the one that they crash into the Nemesis in that movie, right?
Sure,
Is that the one you're talking? Is that the one you're talking about?
sure. I'm gonna have to familiarize myself. This is a prime example of why the internet is ruining everybody's memories.
I'm going to vote for Serenity.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You know which one I really liked was
Mhm.
okay. Hang on. I'm thinking of it.
I'm
What was it
hanging.
called?
I don't know.
I
You
gotta
tell
think
us.
of the. I gotta think of the show first.
How about some keywords here to help you out?
I know, isn't that terrible? I know what I want to say and I can't get it out. Damn it! All right, moving on. It'll come to me.
All right, Ryan, you said Serenity. What else you got?
Well, the Falcon, Serenity,
Yeah.
and no one in particular ship, but just how they handled space battle was the Expanse. It's fantastic.
I still have not seen that.
It is a very good series.
Which is?
The Expanse.
That's what I was thinking of.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
quite good.
that
I
was
love how they
the
handle
one.
space battle.
Yeah, I liked it too. And the ship, I'm trying to remember the name of it.
I
Pella?
No,
Canterbury? I'm
sounds
just
right.
looking at pictures because I've never seen it.
That sounds right. But they had to deal with the inertia of movement in space.
oh, it's a unique name too. Where is it here?
Barkeith?
No, well, the main one that they use is the Rocinante. That was
Yes,
the one.
thank you.
How the hell do you spell that?
Rocinante. It was definitely more military in
Oh,
design.
okay.
But some of these scenes of the space combat with the way it would maneuver and its turrets and everything was really cool. Well done.
Okay.
But the whole series is well done. If you haven't watched it, you should.
It is.
All right.
It's really good.
All right, so I've got. I'm going to put the Millennium Falcon aside because it is one of my all-time favorites. But I think it's every guy that we grew up in our age group probably
Wow.
loves the Millennium Falcon. I would hope. I mean, I think it just comes with the territory. But it's got to be the Enterprise D from Next Generation. And if you watch Picard, and if you watch the last episode in the Picard series 3, it is the one of the most awesome things I've ever seen on television.
I've never
So
watched it.
the season 3 is so much better than 1 or 2. It isn't it, Mark?
That would not
I
take
agree.
a stretch.
But it's season 3 is basically it's almost as if the writers in the room said, you know what, guys, let's just give the fans what they want.
You want to talk about sci-fi ship designs?
Yes.
Do you remember Space Above and Beyond?
Yes.
Which, as far as I'm concerned, totally needs a remake.
Please just
They're hammerhead ships, so I thought were always really cool.
Hammerhead ships.
Yeah, that's what
Okay, yeah.
they call them hammerheads, I think, because of their shape. But
Interesting. Okay, yeah.
likely not a popular choice, I suppose, as far as what most folks our age is going to
I'm trying to think
likely
what
reference.
I'm trying to think what the second one that I was going to say was. Shit. For I love big capital ships for some strange reason. I loved it's called Home One, and it was from Return of the Jedi. It's the big Mon Calamari, big, huge ship that they fight the Death Star with in Return of the Jedi with Admiral Akbar's ship, because it looks like it's all smooth. It looks like it belongs underwater. That's one of my favorites. And third, only because it brings back great memories and because it has, I wouldn't even say it's a practical ship, but it's kind of ridiculous. It's the Planet Express ship from Futurama. Because it's so ridiculous, but it was so 1950s cool. And I have a model of it here on my desk as well that I'm flying around now while I'm talking to you.
Well, on that same subject, then I could suggest the USS Saratoga, which is also from Space Above and Beyond, because it was like a carrier. It was like a space carrier, and it wasn't flashy. It was. I liked it. That was pretty cool. And in the show, the planes or the fighters they come into their bays, and then just the cockpit of the plane raises up into the carrier, which I thought was kind of cool. I wish somebody would put together enough funds to remake that series. It'd be hard
That's
to watch
pretty cool.
without the original cast because I
Yeah.
really liked that show, but that's I don't even know. I assume that they're still around, just doing different things.
The other ship I'd put in there for me would be the Jupiter 2 from the Lost in Space movie with William Hurt and what the fuck is his name? Matt LeBlanc. The movie was corny as hell, but the ship, awesome. All right, Ryan, I need a follow-up question that you were going to ask Mark.
Oh, I was going to suggest, what about the Gunstar from Last Starfighter? That's an awesome one. That was one of the first CGI ones I'd ever seen. And then, of course, you can't not mention the Winnebago.
Oh, okay, well, yeah. Again, that's Millennium Falcon territory, and I just assumed that'd be on everybody's list.
But yeah, I was going to say,
The Gunstar.
Yeah, in the Star Trek universe, if you can teleport anywhere you want to go, why bother flying?
Just for the fun of it, I guess.
Yeah, I know the answer. It's just
That's interesting. Yeah,
because they used to transport people all the time in the Next Generation from spot to spot.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Now, sort of on topic. None of us mentioned anything from Battlestar Galactica. Did you guys ever watch? I
didn't really get into that one.
Neither did I, and I think I tried. And I don't think it's a case where I wouldn't like it or I didn't like it. It was just there was so much. I guess it's like me and certain book series. When there's so much content, it's almost like where do you start?
Fair.
And but though I heard a rumor that there's thinking of remaking that.
I don't like. I love Star Trek, but I don't like a lot of futuristic Earth stuff. And I felt like Battlestar Galactica was just like it reminded me a lot of Stargate Atlantis and Stargate that I really didn't. I hated those shows. But
I never really got into Stargate either. The movie, yes, but the show, no.
The first the movie itself was fantastic, and then it just seemed like, how you're just jumping from planet to planet, but somehow you keep running into the same villains. It just seemed odd. But I forgot all about the Gunstar. That's a great show. The only last thing I can cover with movies that we haven't covered, and as anyone who listened to the last episode knows how infuriated I was with Mark, is
just hang on a second before you get into that, because if you're talking about cool-looking ships,
I'm talking about cool-looking ships.
I'm not necessarily a fan, but anything Warhammer 40K.
Oh yeah,
they design some pretty badass-looking ships. They really do. And,
like some of them look like floating cities.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, I gotta mention that, even though it's not necessarily something I'm greatly into, but the imagery is really something.
One thing that always gets me is the years ago somebody did a side-by-side comparison of all the major sci-fi ships out there, right? So like I'm looking at it now. So Warhammer 40,000, it looks like the biggest one here is Imperium of Man something. It's 6,000 meters across, or 6,000 meters, so 6K. But then if you scroll up, it shows Darth Vader's Executor Star Destroyer at 17,484 meters. So, that's a crazy size ship. And that one was destroyed. Of course, that's the one that ran into the Death Star. So you can only wonder how many fatalities they had in that one movie.
Those poor, hardworking, middle-class people in the Death Star.
All right. So yeah, if you, and this is sort of going back to something you've mentioned previous, Ryan, which is how there are no movie stars anymore. But from your many, many decades of watching films, give me two of the best actors that you like. Doesn't have to be acting talent, but who you think like your favorite movie stars. One male, one female.
Daniel Day-Lewis,
Okay.
phenomenal,
Yep.
different in every role he's in. And a female?
Yeah.
Um, Kathy Bates is fantastic.
I'm going to abstain from this one. I don't have a favorite.
Oh, come on. Mark? My daughter says hi. She's just arrived home from something. So Daniel Day-Lewis, and you said Kathy Bates, Ryan?
She's really, really good. She's played some really good villains, specifically Misery.
Yeah, oh yeah,
She was great in Misery.
And you mentioned Daniel Day-Lewis. Have you ever seen the meme where it says something like, one day you get up to go to work, that you've been doing your job for 6 years, and all of a sudden you look in the mirror and realize you've been Daniel Day-Lewis all along?
No.
Because, I heard that he, for the one role, I think it was My Left Foot, where he plays the dude from Ireland who really can only do stuff with his left foot, and it shows him painting. And apparently he actually did that for some ridiculous amount of time to learn how to do it properly.
Yeah, he was or is quite the method actor.
And Mark, you have nothing to contribute.
Okay.
Doesn't have to be based on talent. It's just say, okay, going back to the analogy you have about not knowing what's in the film.
I'm gonna throw out Willem Dafoe.
Oh, he's good. I like Will.
Okay.
Because he's unique, I guess.
That's fair.
I go back to a clip I saw of him. There's nothing like being cast as a psychopath.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
He'd be the perfect Joker because he looks like the Joker.
Okay, and now female, Mark.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. We might be here for a while.
All right, give me okay, you're standing in a movie store, sort of like it was in the 1990s, 1980s. You're looking for this, for you see a bunch of DVDs or VHS on the wall, and you don't know what to buy, and you see a familiar female actress on it in a film you might be interested in. Who's that person?
Before you answer that, Mark, take an imaginary look to your left and tell me if there's beads. Because if there's beads, you're probably in the adult section.
Yeah.
Wait, let me close my eyes.
I don't think I could even name an adult actress.
I have no idea.
I don't know. I'm going to say Carrie Ann Moss, only because I was such a fan of The Matrix.
That's a good one.
I don't think she's done a lot, but...
Did you see Memento with Guy Pearce? And he plays the guy with amnesia.
I vaguely remember that.
I don't know if I have.
Well, okay, I can't give this, in case you ever watch it, there's a bit of spoilers, but she's in that, and she gives a great performance, but there's just this one scene, so that the movie kind of works backwards. So he's remembering, because he can't remember anything. So everything in the movie, he sort of tattoos on himself. There's one scene with Carrie Ann Moss. Do you want me to tell you what it is, in case you didn't never see it?
Sure.
Spoiler alert. All right. So he's trying to find the person who kills his wife. I think his wife and kids, if I remember correctly. Anyway, so, and because it goes backwards, it shows him sort of trying to figure out who's committing the violence. So the scene has him trying to figure out who's beating up Carrie Ann Moss. And she's describing this person, and he's sort of writing it down. And then because the scene goes backwards, it shows that He's the one who hit Carrie-Anne Moss, and to play him on someone else, she knows he can't remember shit. So she goes out and sits in the car for a couple minutes just until she knows that's the length of his memory, and then she comes back into the scene like, oh, I was this. He beat me up. He beat me up. Who beat you up? Because he can't remember. Fantastically acted scene. I highly recommend it.
Hmm.
But that's a Carrie-Anne Moss. That's a good one.
Wait, was she in Daredevil?
Carrie-Anne Moss? I don't believe
One
so.
episode. Yeah, she was.
Was she?
Who did
I
she
guess.
Oh,
play?
she was a lawyer of some sort, wasn't she?
I think so.
Yeah.
Interesting.
She's been
I
in a
forgot.
lot more stuff than I thought, actually. A lot of it I've never heard of. Some of it was video games, too. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, because she's Canadian, isn't she?
Is she?
Yeah.
Maybe.
She's 57. Wow.
Oh, she did a voice in Mass Effect 3.
Those are other games I've never played.
Oh, they're good. I tried to replay them, actually, and couldn't just because they're dated.
Mm.
I have a hard time going back and revisiting things that are aged. But
Just remember that when your kids don't ever come and see you.
Wow, that hit a little too close to home, right?
I don't like
Trying to think-
anything that's aged.
Trying to think who the actor for me. I think it would probably be.
I guess I mean visually aged,
Yeah.
visually dated. I have a hard
Oh,
time going
Yeah,
back
those games
to.
are. Well, that'll be the next topic in a second. So I'll quickly answer mine. I would probably put Liam Neeson up there because something about I loved Rob Roy. He was great in Schindler's List, and the scene in Ted, I think it's Ted 2, where he comes into the supermarket with the box of tricks. Fucking fantastic scene. Deadpan humor. And the thought of him being in the next Naked Gun reboot, I'm looking forward to that. Actress would be Kate Blanchett, for sure.
Yes, very good.
And I don't know if you've ever seen Elizabeth or Elizabeth the Golden Age. Fantastic. Galadriel makes this current Galadriel look terrible. No offense to the actress. It's just how it's written. All right. So, talking about games. I mentioned to you guys about how I went back and played World of Warcraft Classic. And that, I was instantly transported back to 2005, Mark, playing, in that sort of, because the graphics are terrible. Well, not terrible, but they're like they were then. Everything is like it was, where it's really difficult. There's no boosts or anything like that. And I died probably 8 times in the first 10 minutes. But it brought me back to doing quests with Cassiver, your paladin. It's that long ago. And Trent used to play with us. Oh man, that was a long time ago. But Mass Effect I never got into. So what would be the best video game you've ever played, Mark? In total. Your best, if you could play one video game again, what would it be?
Based on what criteria, I guess, because that's a pretty broad request.
Okay, we'll go back to our analogy from 2 weeks ago, where you're on death row,
Oh,
and they say we have you've got 24 hours to play play a video game again before you can never play anymore. Or okay, I'll expand on that. You have an opportunity to play any video game again for the first time.
Oh.
Which one do you have such a fantastic memory of that you want to play it again for the first time?
Okay, so I am going to say, based on, we'll say, the enjoyment of playing, as opposed to whether I thought I had the best story, best graphics, or what have you, just based on how much I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I would have to say it's probably Final Fantasy VII.
I was going to say the same thing.
Really?
It might even be one of the earlier ones, and for that matter, because that's when it really hooked me.
I could never get into those games. What did you like about it? What?
I don't know. I mean, how old would I have been?
'Cause I
Not
think seven
very.
came. Well, Final
94.
Fantasy, yeah,
Or,
Final Fantasy VII came out, and yeah, because that didn't that launch with PS2?
Came out in 97.
Yeah, because
PS1.
I was about 17.
Yeah, and some of the earlier ones. I mean, it's difficult because they didn't necessarily release in the same order in North America. But yeah, I'm maybe the better way would just be to say Final Fantasy on its own as an IP, I guess,
Hmm.
because depending on how far back I go, it could easily be some of the earlier ones, which had zero 3D effects,
Right.
right?
Fair enough. Ryan, what's yours?
I would agree
You-
with Mark. It would have been an early Final Fantasy.
Wow, really?
Yeah, just got pulled into the story. Cloud, having to deal with
Yep.
all his shit. Yeah.
Because that's it was more impactful back
Mhm.
then because you didn't have all the bells and whistles of advanced graphics that they have nowadays. Like now, it's getting to the point where everything feels so realistic. It's aside from the fact that you're sitting in front of a screen with a controller in your hand or keyboard or whatever, it could easily be hard to distinguish game from, say, movie. But in certain cases,
I could never get into the play style of those games, like the turn-based kind of. If I'm remembering it correctly, because it's been a while, but
Yeah, they were turn based.
I for whatever reason, I just couldn't get into it. Interesting, though.
But yeah, each character had its own backstory, and ultimately you had to eventually let some of them die, but you really don't want to.
Interesting. Well, maybe I'll give them a second look at some point, but I could never. Cause I remember when that, because I think it was the PS2 when that launched, right? Because that launched with the PS2, and that was the game that everybody wanted to play. Because that was the guy with the big sword, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that's a long
the,
time ago.
the Buster Sword, I think, is what they called it. Yeah, that was probably one of the original games where they had revealed, like, I don't know, a character that wields a way oversized weapon.
Maybe I didn't like it as much because I was never a fan of anime, and that was heavy anime, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, yeah, in a manner of speaking, I suppose, because it's all originated in Japan.
Mhm.
But 35 years Final Fantasy has been going as a franchise.
Wow, that's a long time.
What would be the earliest one that I remember? Oh
Well,
boy.
You got Legend of Zelda,
Yeah?
Ah,
some of the
yeah.
early ones. And there's some really early PC ones. Shit. I'm trying to remember the name. Avatar?
There was Might and Magic. There was Ultima Underworld.
That's what I was trying to remember. Yeah, Ultima.
Ultima Underworld was probably the first D&D type game that seemed like it was good. Because what year would that? That would have been what, 94?
Well, I would think maybe earlier than that.
Let me see here. 92, yeah, but it was the first sort of 3D D&D, a game that felt like D&D, where you could equip weapons and you could equip different things in different slots, and at least that's first one I remember. But do you remember playing Shadows of the Empire on
Yes.
N64 for the first time? And I remember there was the entire game. But Ryan, do you remember being at my house for 5 or 6 hours and we just kept replaying that first level on Hoth?
Yes.
just over and over and over again. And I remember thinking, there's more to the game, but I don't think it's as cool as this.
Where you had
Sounds
to harpoon the legs of the walkers
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then spin around them X number of times
yeah.
until they collapsed, which I
yeah.
almost never managed to do.
Oh man, I'm trying to think of what mine would be. I think mine
What
would
about
probably be.
Goldeneye?
I was going to put Goldeneye up there, yeah,
Slappers
because
only.
that's. Oh my god, yeah, Goldeneye. There's the and slightly going back to the soundtracks. That's one that I instantly remember whenever I hear it. Is the because some people on YouTube will have it as one of the best first-person shooters of that era. But I'm trying to think of what I would pick. Mine's probably a toss-up between the first flight simulator I ever played and Civilization One. Because Civilization One they had at the library in high school. It was on the one computer, and I remember going in there and somebody showed it to me for the first time. I was like, wait a minute, I can go through history and like raise a tribe to space domination? Yes, please. But again, back then games were simplistic, but they had all kinds of involvement, right? Like it wasn't graphics was second to the story.
Well, yeah, they had to be. They had
Yeah.
no.
Oh man. But
What was
Final
one
Fantasy.
that there was one that I liked? It was back when they were starting to mix live action video into
Oh,
video games.
Command and Conquer.
No, I was gonna say the Privateer. It was kind of like a um, space combat, I guess. Pretty sure that's what it was called.
Well, they had yeah, because Wing Commander came next, right?
I don't know which one was first.
Actually, it is Wing Commander Privateer, 1993.
Maybe that might not be right.
One game that I fucking loved, and
Maybe it
you gave
was.
it to me, was the. It was sort of like Wing Commander, but you could be like a merchant, and you were flying through space. What the fuck was it? Far? No. Oh shit. What's that called? Oh, what's that called?
Freelancer?
Freelancer. Yes, that was
Yeah.
a great game. I played the absolute shit out of that game.
They don't make those anymore. Like it, and when they do, they make them so bloody complicated. I kind of lose interest.
Well, probably the easiest one that I found that's like Freelancer was that most recent one that was on. Shit, what was it called? Damn it! Not. Oh, what was that called? Hang on, I'm gonna look that up. Keep talking. What was that called?
I'd love to have them make another Wing Commander. I've said that before. I think that would be fantastic.
I think the movie killed that franchise because the movie with like Freddie Prinze Jr. and all those guys in it.
Oh, right.
I think it killed that because it was so corny. In my opinion, it was corny. I mean, some people may love it, but
It's my favorite
what
movie.
was that? You're fired. Oh, what was that game called? Was it Starfield? No. Yeah, Starfield. By Bethesda. It's probably the closest one to where you can actually transport stuff around and do missions, and you can get out of your ship on almost any world and explore. That was pretty good. I don't know if you played that. I'd highly recommend Starfield.
I have it actually.
It's like Skyrim in space.
Yeah. And
But,
it was okay. It had some troubles with it, but it was. I didn't like the space combat. I thought it was
No,
clunky.
generic.
But
I spent more time building ships than I did playing the game. Like I would just go in the spaceship builder, and just try a a million different options to try and make ships look like famous ships that I liked.
I'm not sure this is the one that I'm thinking of. Maybe it is.
Which one?
Oh, I'm just trying to think of other games that were similar to Wing Commander. There was one in particular that I played a lot of. I can't remember the name now. It's so long ago.
There was one that was on PS1, and it was called what's it? Start with an R. No, Colony Wars. That was probably one of my favorite. I mean, it was PS1 graphics, but it was such a long ass game to play. Oh man, that brings back good memories.